Kirkland with UAB Arts and Medicine, and I would like to welcome you to Virtual Mental Health Mondays, where we explore different topics that affect our health and well-being through the lens of arts and creativity. Our mission with UAB Arts and Medicine is to enhance healing and wellness for patients, families, and staff in hospitals, and then also communities that we serve through the arts. As I mentioned earlier, we would love to know who is on our call. So if you want to put in the chat again, who you are, where you're tuning in from, and anything else you'd like to share. And also please note that we are recording this. So while we would absolutely love to see your faces, please turn your camera off if you do not want to be seen on the recording. All right, in honor of marking time, the exhibit that opened last week at UAB's Abrams Engel Institute for the Visual Arts, it opened last week. It's an exhibit that if you're in Birmingham area, you should definitely go see it. But it explores the work of imprisoned artists and the centrality of incarceration to contemporary art and culture. And it's going to be on exhibit through until December. But today we have four amazing individuals. We have Kyes Stevens, director of the Alabama Prison Arts and Education Project of Auburn University. Jeanie Thompson, executive director of the Alabama Writers Forum and the Writing Our Stories Project. We have Dina Dickerson, a former student with the Alabama Prison Arts and Education Project and program director of the Fender Alumni Association, and former student and artist Ron McKeithen. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Jeanie.
Thank you. It's really great to be here. Kimberly, I'm setting my clock. I want to thank you for including the Alabama Writers Forum in this program, and also thank the team. And I'm really thrilled to be here with Kyes, because we have a long association that goes back to the very beginning. So in my 10 minutes, what I would like to do, I'm hearing a lot of chatter noise, maybe people's microphones or something. Anyway, I want to let you know what Writing Our Stories is. And is that coming from me, do you think, that feedback, Kimberly? Is there feedback?
Dana?
It might be. I'm going to check that out for you.
I'm wondering if I'm in here somehow twice, and that's why it's doing it. But okay, I'll keep going. Can you hear it? Can other people hear it? Maybe we should try to fix that.
We can hear you.
I can hear you, and I kicked the other you out.
Thank you. So Writing Our Stories is what I want to talk to you about, but I want to place it in the context of the Alabama Writers Forum. And there on the screen, you see the logo for the Writers Forum, and underneath it, you see the State Arts Council logo. We are a designated partnership of the State Arts Council. And then on the right is the Department of Youth Services, and they're our partner in this program. And this is unique. Alabama is really strong in all of this work that we do, and this work with youth is unique because we, as a private partnership, as a private entity, a nonprofit, work with the school district of the Alabama Department of Youth Services to teach creative writing in the classrooms. So most people don't realize that the Department of Youth Services, which is charged with the welfare of adjudicated youth in Alabama, has its own school district. Just like any county, it has a school board and it has campuses. And when these youth are under the care of DYS, they're on a campus and they're in school. Our program is part of their educational experience. It happens in the classroom. It's also part of their therapeutic experience. And many of the students who are there have been victims of some sort of abuse, neglect, and trauma. Of course, they're in trauma because they are incarcerated, but many of them come out of a situation where there's so much instability at home that ironically, they are having more stability there temporarily, but I don't want to get off into that. my main point is we have the opportunity to teach creative writing to these young people, and in two settings. One is at Mount Meigs in outside of Montgomery. That's the larger campus where the DYS administrative offices are. And behind that, there's a large campus that has one school that's kind of the general population. And the other school is the APAEP program, and that stands for Accountability-Based Sex Offender Program. And these are young people who would go through a training, well, training's not the right word, a rehabilitation program that was developed out of Auburn University's Department of Psychology under the brilliant Barry Burkhart. So we are so happy that we are a part of this forward-thinking program there. We have two teaching writers. I just want to tell you their names. One is Marlon Barton. He's a published novelist. He just published his 5th book last week. It launched. He holds an MFA in creative writing. He's a practicing writer. He teaches creative writing to these young men at Mount Meigs. The other teacher's name is Devonne. Daniel's a poet. He's in Birmingham, and he's on the VACA campus, which is in the Roebuck area of Birmingham. That's a little bit smaller campus, but it's basically the same thing. We're in the classroom. It's in the old poetry in the schools model. There's a classroom teacher or a librarian who is the person in there with us or with our teachers, and a relationship develops between, just like it does in the adult facilities, a relationship develops between the artists who come into the school, the staff at the school, and there's a strong partnership and a great deal of respect and even love, I think, in all of this. So it's a very rewarding thing to do. The young men, at this time, we're just working with the boys. The young men have 9 months of instruction. If they're there, if their time there runs that long, they will have 9 months of creative writing classes. There are very few schools in Alabama that give that much creative writing instruction, except magnet schools or something like the Alabama School of Fine Arts. And at the end of the 9 months, we edit their work and publish these nicely printed, nicely made anthologies of their work. We have a book launch when it's not COVID. We have a book launch. It's a party. They read, they get applause, they get standing ovations. It's very strong. And parents and other people are invited to be there. So, and this is a story that you will hear over and over again if you work in this kind of thing, but they come into this setting seeing themselves as being locked up for a crime they've committed. Many of them leave as published writers with an identity that they are somebody who is going to go out in the world and do something with writing. And, you know, that's the most simplified way to say it, but it's something they can put on a resume. It directs them towards what they may want to study, but mostly creative writing for these young men is a soul building, healing situation, just as it is in many other arts and justice programs. So what is the value of having arts in the schools? I think I've sort of already said it, but when they can see their own stories through the lens of poetry, with all the dimensions of poetry, with imagery and simile and all those things that help us craft lines, and they can also see it through the lens of narrative, where they can tell a story. This is like an ongoing therapeutic process to help them think. And remember, these are adolescents. You know, these are people as young as 12 years old, up to about 18 years old. And so they are in that adolescent stew. I mean, I remember being in it, and it was not fun. I can remember it like it was yesterday to be 14. They're in that stew, but then they're also in this very unnatural situation where they are behind a gate and they are controlled. So poetry is a lifeline for them, and it allows them to, excuse me, it allows them to begin to be more empathetic with their fellow citizens, their fellow human beings. If I can write a story from your point of view and I can understand what makes you hurt, then maybe I can understand why I shouldn't hurt you. And many of these young people come in there from situations where that lesson, that life lesson, has not been taught, very well. I started writing. I'll just wrap up here. I started writing when I was about 14, so I was about their age. And I had been lucky enough to have parents who had books. They read to me. I heard poems. I knew all the Winnie the Pooh characters. They were all real people to me. You know, literature was a part of my life. Somehow, when I was 14, though, I fell into writing poetry, and I didn't really get any instruction until I was up in my 20s. But poetry has always been a lifeline for me. It's been something that makes me know that I'm alive. And I now teach in a graduate program, and I'm doing this work for writers in Alabama. But to me, the most important thing is that all youth in Alabama, and not just the ones who end up at DYS, but all young people in Alabama, should have the chance to be the best writers they can be. And that's why we need to have creative writing in the curriculum of every school in Alabama. Let me end by just reading you one poem from, this is the APAEP chapbook. This is the little chapbook from the APAEP program that will then be incorporated into the bigger book at the end of the 9 months. And this one was called Splashes of Light and Dark. This is called Painter. And this is by a young person whose initials are JH. We can't say their whole name. The lines are a winding tunnel of creativity. The colors are splashes of light and dark. The brush is an extension of my hand to use as I please. My mess is a consequence of my accomplishment. My canvas is a bucket I fill with my thoughts and feelings. My art is a blindfold that temporarily blinds me from my depression and my anger. I'm a superhero that hides my identity. My art is my superpower. My art is the love of my life that I will never let go of. My art is me. I am my art. If we can accomplish that for these young people, then I think we're equipping them to go out into the world once they have finished their time and become the best citizens they can be, because they will be able to know who they are, express who they are, and understand who other people are. And it's a process. It's all an ongoing process. But the Alabama Writers Forum considers this our most important work for the arts in Alabama across all areas. We employ artists to teach these young people. So we're happy to be here today and tell you about it. If anybody would like to know more, our website was on that first slide, but it's www.writersforum.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeanie. And we do have some questions come in, but I'm going to hold them until the end so we can hear from everybody. Kyes?
All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Thanks so much for the invitation to be here today. I'm gonna not so much talk about the impact of our programming at this point, because I'm not the right spokesperson for that. You've got Ron and Dina who can talk about their experience. I think what I'm going to focus on is kind of the philosophical approach to how we structure our spaces of creativity and learning inside. You know, a lot of programs that are focused on people who are incarcerated or somehow involved in the justice system, there are some really interesting measures that are used as a justification for why those programs should exist. And I want to focus on offering a counter argument to that, because, you know, human beings need art. Human beings need access to seeing art, making art, and whatever the direction is, as visual arts, creative writing, theater, sculpture, whatever the person is interested in. and we don't create structures for that in a meaningful way in the state of Alabama. We never have. There's pockets of it people attempt. And much like what Jeanie has already said, we are doing a profound disservice to our state by not making opportunities available. And while I have never talked about our program in the realm of a therapeutic value, there is, of course, a therapeutic value to creating. But one of the things that I have seen with our program inside that is really something that we have tried to nurture is what building community looks like inside of a prison through education and creating. And specifically with our program, we are one of not very many programs in the state of Alabama that are 100% open access. There isn't a time restriction on when someone is eligible to take the class. There are not educational requirements. Our philosophy is open the door, and to make the space welcoming for failure. And that's an interesting thing to say, but I think the beauty of making and creating is learning to fail and finding the nuggets inside of the failure that are what you cultivate and fertilize to grow. So if an art, if a drawing isn't working, to be able to say as a community, this is where I am stumbling as a viewer. Or if you're looking at creative writing, you say, okay, this image is not pulling me in, or tell me what you are trying to get me to understand, and I'm going to tell you if that's what I'm getting. It's a place to be vulnerable. And if we are, as human beings, and this has nothing to do with incarceration, if we as human beings are to advance ourself in relationship to everything around us, we have to learn how to be vulnerable. We have to learn how to take critique. We have to learn how to offer that to other individuals in supportive ways that challenge them to move forward. And it's based in this idea of the community. And when you think about the concepts of the beloved community, and that it takes all kinds of people with all kinds of backgrounds and all kinds of interests to make a space that is super dynamic and encouraging. Over the history of our program, which is at about the 20-year mark at this point, it's a learning process. And of course, when I first started doing this, I stepped into doing it with the mindset and the process that was taught to me through going through an MFA program and a master's program. And what I learned very quickly via our community on the inside was that wasn't necessarily a helpful structure. And so the key to making meaningful and supportive spaces is to understand what the people in the space need, that it is less about my agenda and it's about the agenda and the needs of the students. And inside of a prison, that is a radical act, right? Because there is inside of that structure that supports that level of agency and autonomy. And what I have seen over all of these years is somebody falls in love with learning, somebody falls in love with creating, and all of a sudden the radical act continues by they become the teacher. So for every single person that comes into our class, there are hundreds of people that don't get into the classes. And we empower and nurture our students who are participating to go back to the norms and to be the teacher, to share what they've learned. And when you are a student, right, it allows you to see and step into your work differently. And it develops a beautiful community inside of the prisons. About this, our students for hours. I'm gonna go ahead and close my portion down because I think you will learn what you need to learn about our program from Dina and Ron. So I appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you so much, Kyes. Now I would like to turn it over to Dina Dickerson.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. As Kyes was speaking, it took me back almost 20 years, actually. And it was like, yep, that's that same lady. And I'm going to get through this here without tearing up. I'm Dina Dickerson. I am currently the Director of Programs here at the Offender Alumni Association, which is an organization that was created by a formerly incarcerated individual 7 years ago to create a community that was supportive, loving, and kind. Those that have left incarceration and their lives have fairly got on a path of success, if you will, for society that's not re-offend. For us, that's having the creature comforts that everyone enjoys, food, shelter, and clothing, and getting past a lot of the barriers and things that we oftentimes go through after prison, especially those that have served quite a bit of time. Myself, I served 10 years on a nonviolent crime and was released in 2012. And I told myself that I want to do as much time outside as I did inside. And next year, something I'm very proud of, I'll be home 10 years and have become a great grandmother. So a wonderful grandmother. And so all of that kind of stuff, but I couldn't have done that without some hope and that light of hope in a very dark place in my life. And that's what Kyes Stevens in the program did for me. And so oftentimes we think about the change that we want to see, and you see these slogans that you want to be the change that you want to see. And for me, I flipped it in my life as it relates to the Offender Alumni Association. I want to be that change agent that was available to me, to other people, giving them that same hope, restoring them to a place of humanity. Oftentimes, we judge ourselves quite harshly because that's something that we've heard over the years. And every day, day in and day out, you inmate. And so you gravitate and it becomes the identity in which you're fighting against. One of the things that I went inside fighting was I wasn't going to get institutionalized. I know I may not never go home, but I am not going to get institutionalized. So I wouldn't make a store. I wouldn't call home every day. I did everything to counteract what everybody else was doing, and I didn't talk for 2 years. And when I look back over that experience, it was because I was broken. It was because what calling home every day would do to me. Because I had found myself in a place based on a decision that I had made and I had been condemned for, a mistake, and that my son and my daughter was going to be punished for it. And so I wouldn't allow my mother to visit. And a month after I came home, my mother saw me. It was a noble act, I thought. And a friend of mine told me it was me being selfish. Because I wasn't going to be able to deal with the pain of seeing her walk away every Sunday. I said, well, because she doesn't drive, because of all the stuff I had took her through, because she have to pay somebody to bring her, because she's on fixed income. And, I did all of that stuff. And they told me, but you had denied her the right to see her daughter. And so I make my amends today by, giving what was freely given to me. And I can remember that old raggedy trailer on the yard at Tutwiler. And I didn't know how to drive. I always thought I could become a vocatio though. And I went out there because it wasn't anything else to do inside of the institution. And unbeknown to me, what was going to happen was going to change my life. I've been there about 2 years at that time. And I wish I had it to show, but Kyes engaged us in a self-portrait. But I can remember her loving, kind greeting. And right then, I felt like Dina at that very moment. I didn't feel like 16707. And I held on to that. And that allowed me, with quite a few other things, to walk through that institution in my incarceration with some hope and with some dignity. Because they had told me I wasn't going to take any classes. I wasn't allowed to get my GED because of my time and all these things. And so I said, well, dog, I done messed my life up and you don't have anything to straighten it up. And the board told me it was a technicality. That's what they'll do. This is what we'll do every year. We'll see you because that's what we're supposed to do. But I held on because of that lady right there. And I picked and I drew, and I can remember getting the stamp and creating cards for my son and sending them home to him and stuff like that because of that lady right there. You know, because of that lady right there, I can tell my son today before this call that I love him. And I can see my grandson stand up because of that lady right there. And the program and what they bring. They treat us as students, not as inmates. They give us an opportunity anybody else would be able to be afforded. They don't craft it because we're something special or different. They give us the same learning experience that anyone else would have. They do it with open arms. They do it with a little tenderness and with patience, understanding that we all come from different places and backgrounds and without judgment. So that's what the Prison Art program meant to me. I'm Dina Dickerson, and thank you guys for allowing me to be in this space this day. And I'll continue to be the change agent that someone was.
Thank you so much, Dina. Okay, I'd like to introduce our last speaker, Mr. Ron McKeithen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ronald McKeithen. First start off, like right now, I presently work for APAEP, an organization that freed me. I also work with Dina Dickerson and OAA. And right now, this is kind of mind blowing because I just got out of prison 9 months ago. And to be sitting here in a Zoom, looking at some of my art on this phone and stuff, yeah, it's kind of mind blowing. But let me begin with, I first started, I really started getting interested in art when my grandmother, I just made her a card, you know. I love her trying to please, I just made her a card. And her reaction was so like, you know, I just started making her another one. I just kept making them. And I just kept trying to come up with different designs and everything. And she ended up with like I don't know how many. It was like over 50 something or more before she died. But after she died, I don't know, I just kind of realized that I've become somewhat of an artist. And I started taking some art classes, but my first classes that I took with Kyes were not art classes, it was writing classes. And I think it was writing and poetry, but I took it because was just interested, like Dina said, just hungry for knowledge. And they had me to write poems, and I didn't want to write poems. I wanted to kind of just learn how to write, but I didn't want to write poems. But I have this thing, whatever assignment I received, I seem to kind of like put my passion into it. But I don't know, it helped me just to release, not just anger, but to form thoughts that I just never really just took time to sit down and form. I remember a poem I did, Black Beautiful Me. And I really just thought about this poem when we started talking about poetry earlier. But it was done in another class, not with Kyes, but with a class we were working on a podcast. And Jeff's Memorial Project had came and asked us to do some work dealing with race, prison. And so I had to write a poem. And I don't know, It's just something about being able to just put words on paper and see these words. It's like releasing thoughts that's been trapped inside. I even wrote a few writings that even today when I read, it's like remembering a part of myself because, oh man, trying to write, it's not easy for me because I'm not really good. I can just make up things, you know, but I want to try to keep it real, just be honest. And so a lot of myself, a lot of my heart was put in a lot of the writings. And none of that would have happened if Kyes when I had those classes coming there. Because I went to other classes in prison, anger management, different classes, but there was something about them Auburn classes where it seemed like she always picked the right person. I mean, this person, every teacher I can think of, instructor, a professor that has come here, it's like, I don't know, it's the way they look at you, the way they talk to you. And we're so used to being looked at and talked to like we just, I don't know, like a roach walking around or just some dust on the corner. But they come in and look and talk to you like you're a real human being. And what helped me in really discovering myself, a lot about myself, because I was able to see myself through their eyes. And when I saw myself and saw how they were seeing me, a trust developed. I didn't have no problem just opening up and just sharing whatever was on my mind. And I was very thankful for this drawing class that Kyes had created, because someone was asking for more drawing classes. This particular class, I always wanted to learn how to draw a face. I could draw any kind of flower, put any kind of design around it with an ink pen and just like make it bloom on paper. But I never could draw faces. I just couldn't do humans. And so this instructor, we call her Lisa Love, but I don't know, she convinced me that I can do it. And then I finally just, that same night, I just started drawing my nephew. And it came out so good because I got a little advice from a guy, but it came out so good to like I was in a rush to take it back and show it to class. And since then, I've been able to just, I don't know, draw. And then the things that I picked to draw, I try to stay away from things, horrible thoughts, ugly things. I like to draw things that's beautiful. I love, for some reason, drawing mothers with their children, just holding the child. It's just, and I think that really comes from just missing my family, missing my mother, because by the time I started learning to draw, my mother had died. I found that she had died, and then 6 months later, I found that she was murdered. So, but she didn't get to see none of that. My grandmother, she didn't get to see none of my real artistic talents. She didn't, and I regret that. But it's one thing I'm positive of, that if it wasn't for art and meditation, I don't know, I think I might have lost my mind in there. Because art for me was a place I could escape, you know? It was like chaos everywhere, which I got normal to, but it's just this sense of dread I would always feel. I can like do certain things, go play ball or something to kind of put it up. That sense of dread always comes back. It uses with me every night, this feeling like that this is it, that I don't know, that I'm gonna die here, you know? But when I go into these classrooms, I don't feel that. I enjoy just being around other minds that are trying to learn things. And it's one thing particularly I like about those classes in prison. You will see guys walking around every day. You don't talk to them or whatever. You know, they be acting crazy. They be doing things and make you think they're just totally just dumb in the head. But when they get in that classroom and you get them to open up, it's like just meeting somebody new. And then you'll find this positive thread that you connect with. I've had a lot of guys come to me about wanting to learn how to draw. So I started an art class in my dorm, the Honor Dorm. And it was great watching guys trying to learn how to do something. I mean, it was like some guys couldn't even draw a straight line, to be honest with you. But it's this thing about if you can find something that you love to do that, and you can just, I don't know, grasp into the feeling you get of creating things, you'll stay with it. And it's guys that have been in my class that can draw better than me, at least in my opinion. They deny it, but I'm seeing their style or what they're doing certain things. I can see where they can do certain things, hair or whatever, and I have to let them know that, no, you're doing this better than me. And just for them to be like, well, hey, man, all of a sudden I'm better than you, and I'm thinking you the blah, blah. No, man, it ain't about what I can do, it's about what you can do. And a lot of times, if we just tap in this certain knowledge or this certain potentials that we have, before you know it, man, you'll come to realize that you're actually close to being a genius, though, just close to just, I don't know, you're not that person you thought you was. You'll realize that you're not the person that whole prison setting is trying to convince you are, because you hear about programs and stuff coming, but yeah, they get inside the prison, but yet the prison administration or the officers, they don't support you. They do more trying to deter you than support you to taking these classes. But like Kyes says, we have a community. It's like a lot of times it'd be the same guys, some of the same guys taking a lot of the classes because we took so many of them. We wait and we want to rush to be within that 25. But I wouldn't change when it comes to those classes. Like I said, it was a blessing. And even today, out here, when I was released, I started looking for another class to go to because I still needed that distraction, because we're out here, it was spooky, nervous when I first got out. It was like, can I really do this? Because I'm in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I can do this, but can I really just come out here and just regain my life? With the support system I've got, I shouldn't even, that was a waste of time worrying about that. It's something that what Dina has mentioned about where they want to allow her to get her GED. When I first went to prison, the first thing I got was my GED. Well, I was in prison, got to county jail. But it seems like whatever class I get into, certain things I do, I always like just want to share. I want to teach what I know. And before I know it, I began being a tutor in ABE at 2 different prisons. And it's this thing about helping people learn, or having a person that just come to you and say, man, thank you for helping me get all I did was teach math for real. I just taught math, but a guy would always come and say, hey man, thank you, I got my GED. And that made me feel so good that I helped somebody, because that GED was gonna help them get out of prison. It's gonna help them get home. And even though like I might die in this place, I'm still doing something to help somebody else get out. Man, that was a beautiful feeling. And even now, I'm blessed to be out here and to be driving around 2 guys that I served time with, both life without parole, both have done over, well, one 26, another 36, and I'm 37. But to be able to drive these guys around and talk about, because we all lived in the same dorm. And it's like a blessing every day that I'm receiving from just, I don't know, dealing with the people I've met. And all of this really started, this new me, this reinventing myself, it started in prison. And I had to do it, because if I didn't, oh man, like I said, I would have lost my mind. And I'm still reinventing myself, because right now my life is far better. And my mind and understanding of life is so stronger than it was when I went in prison. So right now, I'm living the time of my life. And I regret that my mother and my grandmother can't see it, but the other people that I care about, my support system, the guys and everybody that was in my corner in prison, that was like regular there for me. I mean, from the first day to now, for me to just, the things that I'm doing to just be able to show them that, hey, I was worthy and I want to make you proud. I'm not going to let you down. And that's a wonderful feeling. And I'm getting to see a lot of people that supported me. And that's like, it strengthens my mind, it just, I don't know, it just does things for me that I can't really explain. And really, I don't want to go too deep into, because my eyes start tingling and stuff. But I want everybody to know that Kyes, the UAB was bringing classes in as well. The UAB lecture series, all of those classes, it was like, guys just looked forward to just sitting there. We didn't care what you was talking about. We didn't care really what you was, we just wanted to learn something. And the way you taught us, the way you was there for us, the way you just took time and just made sure you got us what we needed, you saved some lives, Kyes. I'm talking to you, Kyes. You saved some lives. You helped save mine. And that's why I hug you so hard whenever I see you. And with that, I think that's all I have to say for right now. If somebody asks me a question, because I'm running out of words.
Thank you so much, Ron. I just kind of am reflecting back on what, people have been saying, and, just again, finding space to to treat people with dignity as humans, community, having a purpose, having stimulation, learning new things, becoming just feeling like you're becoming a better version of who you are. And yeah, that's what the arts can do, no matter, where you are. I appreciate so much what everybody's been sharing. I will say, please go ahead if anybody else has a question to ask our speakers, but I'll just kind of go down. There were some questions about specifically for the Writers Forum and for the Offenders Alumni Association. Jeanie, folks were wondering how they might be able to, purchase some of the books of poetry.
Okay, I put a note in the chat that said, if you'd like something, to email me.
Mhm.
And we just charge for the postage. It's like $5 to mail the books or whatever. But if anybody in this group who's a part of this program wanted to see the lessons that we use, we can make those available, because again, they're set up, in a lesson plan format for teaching writing. And we have lots and lots of anthologies in the warehouse. So if you're working with a group and you'd like to have a box that you want to use with your group, like, I don't know if the Alumni Offender Association does anything like that, but it's sort of a sin that I have books sitting in a warehouse. And I have provided them through a wonderful new thing it's relatively new, called the Justice Arts Coalition. I believe Kyes is on the board of it. But I did some workshops for them during COVID, and I shared with some of the teaching writers and teaching artists their material so they could spread them out. So we want to spread this, we want to spread them out. So just email me and we'll communicate about it, and we'll make it happen. I'm in Montgomery. If any of you all are in Montgomery, we could easily get them to you. And I just want to say about marking time, I'm so thrilled. I didn't realize that show had opened. I bought the book as soon as I saw the show. And I've been following the work of some of the artists in there, so I can't wait to come up and see that.
Thank you, Jeanie.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else asked about the Offenders Alumni Association. I know we posted that website, but Dina, what kind of services does OAA offer?
Well, we started out just being a supportive community for persons that was leaving incarceration, and we got an opportunity back in December when Ron was released, when APAEP helped get his sentence eradicated. We were able to walk him forward as well. So what we do is almost like an alcoholic. We just walk beside individuals. We do a little bit more in depth. We intentionally walk with individuals as they're transitioning, because as he shared, a lot of people think that persons should just be okay once they're released from prison, shouldn't have any more problems. But as he was saying, he had questions within himself, and we knew that. But we surrounded ourselves with him to give him a sense of safety and security so that he could develop as he was moving forward at a rate that he needed. We're very person-centered. That's one of the services that we give. We also refer to agencies where persons need health care, mental health, and things like that, case management, if you will. We have a youth program. It's amazing that see someone, Michaela Moore, was saying something about wanting to work in youth detention. That's amazing, because we have a youth program that we've been able to expand this year, where we're going to be working with 60 justice-involved youth. Justice-involved youth and their families, bringing those mothers alongside this journey, but doing it in a way that differentiates the parent and the kid, and looking at them as two individuals, so that that whole family can start healing and become healthy, because there is a lot of trauma that they experience, that poverty-stricken, disenfranchised. We also do an in-reach where we go inside and bridge the gap between services, supportive communities, and work with those individuals in a way that helps with cognitive behavior and acclimation back to home. So that's what, then we got a community engagement piece where we adopt a community and we do lunch service year round for free for those elders that's in the Titusville and the West End community. As a give back, and giving us something meaningful to do, because as I said earlier, we sort of still hold ourselves hostage to our past. And so we're still growing forward past that.
Thank you. Let's see, we also have another question. If there's an organization that wants to get involved with a youth detention center, how would one go about doing that? This is from Fine Arts, Fine Life.
Well,
maybe this is for Jeanie or for Dina.
Well, I would love to set up a meeting between whomever it is with that question, our executive, and see where and how they can possibly be a partner in going, since we do have a new opportunity to reach possibly 100 between the school that we're going in, because we was just given the opportunity to work with the alternative school 4 days a week, and those that are just as involved. And that would be something awesome to bring to them, because I'm big on exposure and opening up their minds up into spaces that pretty much oftentimes don't exist for those kids that's in the inner city.
Is that in Birmingham, Jefferson County? Which?
It is. It is.
Okay, what I was just going to throw out here is to answer that question about how to get involved, the network of all of this stuff is not completely coherent. DYS, Department of Youth Services, is involved in some things around the state, like they're involved in one in Mobile, which I'm trying to get going down in Mobile, but it seems like Birmingham has a whole other dynamic of it. Then you got North Alabama. So really, it's a matter of kind of ferreting out where the things are. Birmingham seems to be pretty strong with this work, but I always get kind of perplexed when I'm over here doing this work with Mount Meigs and stuff, and I'm like, well, why don't I know that's going on, you know? So one of the things that I want to do is work more with alternative schools and special programs so that they don't end up at DYS. I always say I'd be happy to have no customers over there at DYS, you know, but that's always going to happen. It's not in a perfect world, but I think the more we can get the school systems, and I would say this, there is a tremendous amount of American Rescue Plan arts education, education money that's still coming into Alabama and they're still trying to figure out what to do with it. And so all of us need to kind of get up in front of the educational power structure and say, look, all that lost learning y'all have because of COVID, we can come in and do a lot to help you with that. So there's a dimension of this. I just want to say this for everybody. There's a dimension of this that involves a lot of advocacy and putting on your political hat sometimes. And, but it seems like it's going really well in Birmingham, and I want to know more about it. So I will get with everybody, and just the more you can also let your elected officials know what you're doing and let them claim it as something that's happening in their area. You know, that's what I always try to say to people. You know, these programs are Alabama's, and you can claim them and say that we do this in Alabama. And we do it really well. Kyes is, you know, nationally known. She's been to the White House. I mean, we have a very strong national reputation for what we do, but we need to get these people in Alabama, in the state representatives and the state senators and the judges and everybody, to also know about it, because it's a powerful thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you for letting me ask. I think, Kyes, that I have heard you speak before, maybe 2013, we had a panel discussion here. The Hill Center had not yet been renovated. It was with the release of the movie, or a screening of the movie, the Dharma Brothers. Would that be correct? Would you have been part of that? And if my timing is correct, I think that means for 8 years, I have kind of just been walking around wondering how to be a part of what you all do, so helpful to you in a way that sort of taps into what I've just kind of tried to put together on a very small scale in my foreign cultures class. So for example, currently Ron will be coming in as a teaching artist into the foreign cultures class. He and Connie and I will work with our students, I think, to do something that sounds very similar to what Jeanie described. And I feel like I just need a better handle on how to maybe centralize or join all these efforts together so that my work is better for my students, but also so that what we're doing can be shared with what you all are doing. So just exploring maybe more, I don't know, official community partnerships. So I guess to put it a different way, I have worked with the UAB lecture series that Ron mentioned, but that is very restrictive as far as like I couldn't bring in, for example, students along with me if what I wanted to do was share with the men at Donaldson something that I had also done with my students in foreign cultures. Like I and any other faculty member who was partnered to go in and do a presentation, we were the only ones coming in. But I wonder if there's a way to partner students in our classes here with students who, incarcerated students. I just need guidance on something like that. I'm just hopeful it can happen, but I don't know how to make it happen.
Are you talking about the juvenile students or the adults?
So my experience is with Donaldson and the UAB
Okay, the
lecture
adults,
series,
okay.
but I'm open to
Yeah,
other.
there are a lot of really strict rules about working within the juvenile system because of protecting the confidentiality. Okay.
Yes.
Probably wouldn't be possible for the students to come to do, you could come and visit or something. So we could talk about that on the side, but I also just want to throw out that the Alabama Writers Forum, in its mission to be a statewide literary support organization, can at least try to keep up with names and addresses and lists and stuff and connect people and bring y'all into our, you know, there's some coordination we could help with there. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Erica,
Oh, sorry, guys, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm watching our time and I'll be quick. There are ways that you can join students on campus with students on the inside. We have done this with some visual arts projects. And let's just figure out how to have a side conversation. And a couple of years ago, we established a higher education network for the state of Alabama. And we've done, we did a statewide meeting a couple of years ago at Auburn, and we're gonna revisit that and do that again next year. But I think what we're moving toward right now is making the statewide network not just a higher ed entity, but as a more robust inclusion of communities and voices. So, you know, my email address is kyes@auburn.edu. And if y'all are interested in learning more about that, please just send me a note. And you know, Jeanie is spot on. We all know about all of these individuals and people doing just extraordinary work, and the people who make some pretty colossally poor decisions on behalf of the state of Alabama need to know more about what we are doing. And elected officials are a really important place to start. But if people don't know, but it really, we have to some momentum behind that.
And Kyes, when you have your meeting, I would be happy to do an advocacy panel for you, because I spend a lot of time going up to the State House and I can grit my teeth and go down there and do that. And so that might be a good thing, some trainings, you know, how do you know? Because frankly, many people don't know. How many people on this call do you know your state representative and your state senator in your districts? And have you ever been to watch the legislature? It's okay if you say no, but it's very important to be an informed citizen. And living in Montgomery, I have been immersed in it. And I just think in every group like this, people need to know. How do you do it? How do you call people? Who's on the committee? How do you figure it out? Right now, there's a shuffling happening in the legislature because key players have moved around. A key committee chairman went to be the finance director. So now there's a new Ways and Means chairman. So now there's a lot moving, plus there's an election coming up. But I don't mind doing that. And if you ever want to come to Montgomery, I'll be happy to take you to the State House.
Thanks, Jeanie. We are pretty much out of time, but but it looks like if have questions, Kyes put her email up there, and we have the websites for the Alabama, the Writers Forum and OAA. But I wanted to leave us with hearing from each of our four guests. Starting with Ron, just wanted to hear what's the next thing on the horizon for you?
Well, I've done a couple of art exhibits. And I think that I don't know, I'm getting a lot of attention because of my drawings. And so I'm immersed myself a little more deep into this Birmingham art world. And I don't know, it may take, I might can take it to New York, because I've been hearing about people going traveling and all that. So, but right now I'm just trying to get a concrete, just trying to get my life together. I'm working at a place that I love. I got people in my life that I love. I don't know, the door's open. I have so many options right now that it's confusing. So I'm serious. I've got options. There was a time when I didn't have any. I'm talking about serious, I didn't have any. And so, the sky's the limit for me.
Thank you. Dina, what about you? What's next on the horizon for you?
Well, it's funny you ask. I resigned about a month ago from a homeless shelter that I had been working in maybe about 10 months after getting home. So that sort of kind of had been home for me. And I think I was just as passionate about those that have found themselves in dire situations in a homeless episode as I was about persons as it relates to those that are impacted by our criminal justice system, whether they're inside or out, whether they're young people or old. So right now, unlike Ron, I'm just now getting into a new transition to actually give full-time attention to that part of my passion, which is, they call it prison ministry. I don't know what they call it, but I'm just excited about all of the possibilities of, now that I don't do this 35 hours a week on a volunteer basis. And then I had to have that for 40 hours so that I could pay rent a week. And we were able to go into 2 different states on a shoestring budget with those efforts, and partner with the U.S. Attorney's Office and all this kind of, I don't know. I'm just breathing through the moment and trusting in my higher being to open whatever doors and windows and stuff. And I have a wonderful support team of people that when I feel discouraged or inadequate and all of that, they say, you don't have anything else to prove. You've done enough in the 7 years at the HIM. So I'm just excited to see all the fruits blooming that I've had a part in their lives. So I don't know. I guess I'm gonna still dig holes and plant seeds for right now. So that's where I am.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dina.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kyes, what about you?
You're mute. She's muted.
Thank you, Jeanie. So out of our arts program birthed a college degree program. So we built the first ever Bachelor of Science degree program on the inside of facilities. We have Auburn University students at State and Correctional. And very exciting for us as we are starting at Tutwiler in January with the same program. And also getting ready to launch a new reentry program in Birmingham. So things are busy.
Wonderful. That's great. And Jeanie, what about you?
Well, I want to, the biggest thing that we're trying to do right now is to get this teaching writing book, which is called The Language of Objects, Teaching Creative Writing in Alternative Settings. We're trying to get this finished so that we can market it and get it out there into schools and other settings. And that's a big thing that's been going on for a long time. So that's what I'm trying to really push out. But the forum is ready to help in any way with this stuff. And I'm so glad to have been a part of this and make all these connections. If we could make this many connections in an hour, I imagine what we could do if we had a couple of days. So thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. Maybe that should be a next, a future activity. But yes, clearly there's so many people doing really important and valuable work. And yes, if there could be a network, that sounds wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being on this call or Zoom. Thank you, Kyes and Dina and Jeanie and Ron, for your time. And I just want to say our next Virtual Mental Health Monday will be on October 18th, where we're going to talk to the director and the cast of Raising Our Voices, stories of cancer told through movement, music, and voice, which will be a program that Arts and Medicine has been working on for a couple of years now because of COVID. But anyway, again, thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing y'all soon.
Thank you.